right, hello everyone. My name is Adderley Danley Bearden. I use she, her, and hers pronouns, and I am the housing coordinator for Crown and Merrill colleges at UCSC. I'm going to explain a little bit about the continuing student housing process and room selection for Crown and Merrill, and hopefully answer some, if not all, of your questions. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So just some breakout room expectations as we move forward. Um, you all did fabulously in the previous segment, so I imagine we'll continue along with that. Just please stay muted, and when the time for questions comes about, either in the various slides that we have or at the end when we do like an FAQ, and you can always use the QR code listed here. Okay, so for continuing student areas that are available for room selection, please keep in mind for Crown and Merrill, you can only select one college. So if you're interested in living at the apartments at Crown and Merrill, please keep in mind you are applying either to Crown or Merrill to hopefully get an apartment there. You cannot apply to both, they're not combined. And then, as you'll see, I've listed the bed spaces that are available for each college, both the apartment bed spaces and the types of rooms that are available, as well as the residence hall bed spaces, to give you a kind of an idea of what's available for continuing students as we move forward towards the room selection process. So we're going to move into some apartment options. I've provided the apartment configurations for both Crown and Merrill. We're going to start with Crown, and this number at the bottom under each floor plan is going to be the number of those apartments that are available for room selection. So something to keep in mind as you think about what's available, what might work best for your group as you come up with your options or where you'd like to live. So these are some of the Crown apartments, including the 6-person apartments, 5-person, and there's also a 4-person apartment, and we have 4 of those, and a 4-person apartment, and we have 12 of those. That is for Crown, and then we can move along to Merrill. These are the 5-person apartments. As well as a 6-person apartment, and you'll notice we have 20 of those. And 8 of the 4-person apartments that are the 4 singles, as well as 2 of the 4-person apartments that are the triple singles. So something to keep in mind. We're also working on making these floor plans available online on the housing website. It's still a work in progress, but they will be up. And then this is just an occupancy breakdown. Hopefully it'll help you as you prepare, but the types of apartments, as mentioned in the room configurations and the floor plans, as well as how many of them we have. And I'd just like to note one that wasn't included in the floor plans was the one apartment that we have for 2 people, and that's because it won't be available for room selection. It's reserved for DRC students, but I just like to be transparent that that exists as well. So moving along to the pre-assignment process and kind of how it works. It's early March is when the pre-assignment process is occurring, and that's for the campus-wide themes that Gabriella went over, as well as when we assign the NAs and RAs and their roommate groups to their apartment spaces and res hall spaces, as well as DRC accommodations for students that have housing accommodations specifically. So the pre-assignment process is March 9th to the 31st. Before room selection, we as housing staff assign those groups, including the RAs, the themed housing, and the DRC students, which must be renewed annually. So if you have a DRC accommodation already, I recommend checking in with their office to get that accommodation renewed before the pre-assignment process. Let's see. One thing to note for students with DRC accommodations is that if you have an ESA only and no housing accommodation, you won't be a part of that pre-assignment process. But if you do have a specific housing accommodation, like you need specific housing without stairs, you need a specific room type, visual alarms, anything like that, that would be a part of the pre-assignment process. Um, And if you are a DRC student, we can offer you a pre-assigned space. But unfortunately, if you have roommates that you're hoping to live with, and that you're hoping to live with in a group, we will not be able to pre-assign the roommates with you or your friends with you. So you'll be able to make the choice whether or not you'd like to be pre-assigned into a space that matches your DRC accommodation, or if you'd like to proceed forward with a roommate group. And we will need you to decide before April if you'd like to proceed with the room selection or with your group. And moving on to more about the room selection process. I'd just like to clarify this is what it looks like. It'll appear as a button in the student housing portal where you find the roommate requests and the assignment information. So you'll select that. And then to reiterate who is eligible to participate, you have to meet both of the following conditions, which is living continuously in university housing during winter, this winter quarter of 2026 and spring quarter. Of course, that does not include students who are studying abroad, or if you have an approved leave of absence and you lived in university housing prior to taking that leave of absence. And then you also need to reapply for fall 2026 university housing during the application period of February 19th to the 26th in order to be eligible for room selection in April. So some things to know about requesting roommates. After you go through the application process, all group members have to apply to the same college or community. And you all have to be eligible for room selection as well. When you go to search for your roommate group, you want to make sure that everybody in your group has included themselves in the roommate search results so that people can find you using your UCSC email address. So you're going to want to sign off on that through the portal, and you're going to want to save that. And again, you're going to use the roommate request icon, and then you can create a group, and you search by UCSC email and send invites. You have to make sure that everybody in your group accepts the invitation. It's a multi-step process. So just because they got an invite doesn't mean that they're automatically added to the group. You want to make sure everybody accepts the invitation as well. And then this is important, just a reminder that when you join a group, you're authorizing the group leader to potentially select housing for you and accepting their decision as final. So the group leader will be in charge of assigning each person in the group to a space during room selection. And we'll go into a little bit more detail in future slides. We just wanted to prepare everyone for that. And as Gabriella mentioned, how are the room selection start times determined? So students who are applying to their affiliated college, like Crown and Merrill, the UTC or the Village will be sent time slots. Current first year students who are going to be rising sophomores who entered UCSC in fall or this winter will receive earlier start times, and then all other continuing students receive start times after those first year students. And these start times are randomly generated and they cannot be changed. So this is just hopefully a helpful illustration. If 3 out of 4 people in your group are affiliated with Crown and you all are applying to Crown, 3 of you are going to get time slots. So the way I like to think about it is 3 opportunities to get an earlier time slot and potentially see housing that's more available earlier on in the day. So this question comes up a lot. Students are interested in potentially changing their college of affiliation to hopefully apply to that college and potentially get a time slot. There is a process to do that through the Office of the Registrar's website by clicking the Forms and Petitions in the drop-down menu. And you can go through that process of submitting a form, a petition. This does not guarantee that you will be approved for that affiliation change. So please keep that in mind. It's a multi-step process. Once you submit the petition, it'll be reviewed by your college, and the approval is not guaranteed. The deadline to submit a petition to change your college of affiliation, in order for it to change for spring quarter, is February 27th. Your petition may not be approved by the application period of February 19th to the 26th. So work with your group and go through all hypothetical situations in which you do get approved to change your affiliation or you don't get approved. Make sure that you're considering all outcomes and that you're prepared for any and all of those. So room selection that's on April 7th is first come, first served based on your start time. So availability is based on the time that you log in, and then obviously as more students make their selections for their spaces throughout the day, availability is going to change. Unfortunately, space availability is not certain. So you're only going to be able to select space that fits your exact housing group. So for instance, if you have a group of 4 people, you're not going to be able to see when you log in for room selection any apartment spaces that are larger and have more spaces than 4 people. So you're only going to see what your group is able to completely fill, whether that's a res hall triple in the residence halls, or if that's a 5-person apartment and you have 5 people in your group. You're going to want to you're going to only be able to see spaces that you're able to completely fill. And then for individuals, that would be if you're just one single person, you'd only be able to see residence hall single spaces. And then a little bit of insight into the room selection process. This is how you're going to view spaces if they're available to you during your time slot. You're going to see the different apartment spaces and be able to place holds on them for you and your group members. If you're the group leader, assuming that you are, and you're going to be able to see more information about the room before you place a hold on it. And like I mentioned before, your roommate group is going to need to fill an entire res hall space or apartment space. And one thing I want to mention as well is you're only going to see space, or you're only going to be able to select space in one apartment. You're not going to be able to split your group members up into different apartments. You're, like I mentioned, only going to be able to fill that one whole space. And then spaces are held for 5 minutes while you complete your selections. You'll see a timer at the top of your screen that counts you down through that process, similarly to if you're buying concert tickets, for instance. And then once you have placed a hold on those bed spaces, you're going to have the opportunity to assign yourself and your roommates as shown by my use of Animal Crossing characters here. And so you're going to be able to assign certain members of your group to specific rooms. Beforehand, you're going to want to talk about, who wants to be in the triple, if there's triple rooms, or who wants to be in the single, if there's single rooms, etc. And you'll be able to select the specific bed spaces for those students. And then you're going to be able to review your selections and confirm and assign yourself and your group to all those spaces. And this is going to be final. This is confirmation that you've reserved a space and you are now under housing contract for that space for you and your group as well. Some important reminders, designate the person in your group with the earliest time as your group leader. You're going to want them, like for instance, if somebody in your group has a slot at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. And everybody else has a slot in the afternoon, you're going to want to make the person with the earliest start time your group leader so that they have the best chance to assign you housing. Um, so those start times are going to be emailed on April 2nd, and you can edit who the group leader is through the portal. And then planning together is a great idea. You want to discuss what room types each person is willing to accept and share who's going to share a room with who. This is something that, as a housing coordinator, I'm able to adjust after the fact if everybody in your apartment agrees. But of course, it would be great if you're able to assign everybody to the space that they would like immediately during room selection. But that's something you want to discuss, as well as being flexible depending on what space is available. So if you were hoping to get only an apartment with all singles and the only thing that's available is going to be some apartment spaces with doubles or some triples, etc. You're going to want to make sure that you've discussed all those options. So in the event that maybe your first choice isn't available, moving on to the second, and knowing when you are go to make your assignments, who wants to be with who. And then forming a roommate group doesn't guarantee there will be space available for your group size and gender makeup. So if you get to room selection and there isn't a space that fits your group and you're not seeing options, you can always edit your group in real time and discuss with them beforehand what happens in the event that there isn't a space for you. So then maybe adjusting your group from a 6-person group to a 5-person group, and then seeing if there are any spaces for a 5-person group instead of 6, that sort of thing. This planning guide is really helpful. The continuing student housing planning guide, you can go through the sort of different options that are available for you and your potential roommates. Move onwards and go over some of the housing rate information. I always like to be as transparent as possible with students, especially with the apartment rates, making sure that everyone is knowledgeable going through the room selection process, what they can expect for rate of housing for next year. And it is something to consider with you and your group, what spaces are going to be possible for you financially, and what would be the best options going forward. And that's something to talk about with your group as well. So if your group leader does need to make assignments on behalf of everybody, to make sure you communicate and let them know what spaces you are able to do and what spaces maybe to stay away from. And then just as a reminder, Delaware has different housing rates. So if you are interested in Delaware specifically, you're going to want to check on the website for their specific rates because they are different. They have a different 10-month contract as opposed to the normal academic year contracts for the apartments on campus. And then as a reminder, if you have a DRC housing accommodation, the rates are going to be different. They're based on a weighted average depending on your specific housing accommodation, and those are listed, and I provided the link here under the housing website as well. So some frequently asked questions, what are your chances of getting housing? Like Gabriella had mentioned previously, this isn't something that we can predict since we don't know how many people are going to be applying, where they're going to be applying, what housing they're interested in. But you can maximize your chances by applying during the application period, which is the 19th to the 26th, forming a roommate group with other eligible students, and having backup plans for your roommate group and yourself as well. So Meet a Roomie events. We're actually going to be having our Crown Merrill Meet a Roomie event today at 6 p.m. at the Merrill Cultural Center. So if you're interested in meeting other people from this community and looking for potentially forming a roommate group, we recommend you attend that event. And then as well as the other communities listed here as well this week and going into next week. So how gender is going to affect room assignments. So a student's gender as they've listed through the student housing portal is how we work off of the wait list. It also is how it's going to impact room selection as well. So in most cases, let's say if a housing coordinator is working off the wait list, students are going to be assigned to roommates of the same gender. So we encourage students if you need to update your gender through the portal or adjust that at all, you can do that. It typically does take 24 to 48 hours to reflect. So we want to make sure that in the event that you, ahead of room selection, would like to adjust that, you have enough time to do so. If you are in a group with a lot of people of different gender identities, as reflected in the student housing portal, and you want to live in a room together, the room selection process won't allow you to physically place yourself in a room together. If that happens and you're coming into that kind of conflict with you and your group, we recommend getting into contact with your housing coordinator, such as myself, because we're going to be hosting a Zoom session for students that are coming into contact with that problem. So if you have a hold on a space and you're not able to select a space for you and your group, due to a gender conflict within the system, you can join the Zoom and we can help you work through it and place you manually in a space. So again, please reach out to your housing office or for the housing office wherever you apply for you and your group, and let them know that is a potential complication for your group. And we can help you and provide you with a link to that Zoom on the day of room selection and give you some more information. So in terms of the timeline, we'll now move into a little bit about the wait list, which happens pretty much from the end of room selection through until the start of the next academic year. So if you're not able to select a space in room selection, a housing coordinator will work to place you into a space whenever space becomes available. So we recommend checking your UCSC email and your portal from the end of room selection if you're not able to select a space throughout the summer until, and if we're able to assign you, because you'll be asked to re-verify your interest in on-campus housing and re-verify your application, and this will let us know that you're still interested. And until you re-verify and go through those steps, which is at the start of each month, we'll move our focus to students who have re-verified their application. So we want to make sure that you're staying up to date on that and making sure you let us know you're still interested in on-campus housing so we can continue to consider your application for spaces when they become available. And as a reminder, if you find off-campus housing or you're no longer interested in living on campus, please cancel your application through the student housing portal as soon as possible, so that you don't have to get assigned when you are no longer interested. And then if you were to cancel your on-campus housing, you would be assessed that fee for canceling an assigned space, as mentioned in the prior part of the presentation. And I've included the fees again and the dates in which they change. So you want to keep an eye on that as well. So if you're on the wait list, I always like to encourage students to make sure that the lifestyle questionnaire portion of your application, including like your sleeping habits, how tidy you are, if you're comfortable with ESAs in your space, make sure that that's as up to date as possible, because that is a large part of how housing coordinators assign you in the future. Because we want to make sure you're assigned to a space with somebody who matches your needs and so that you can live together happily. We do look at all the preferences in your application when assigning you off the wait list. If a space opens up that you've said in your application that you're interested in, we will assign you. If a space becomes available that maybe isn't exactly aligned with your preferences, but maybe, for instance, let's say you're interested in a bunch of apartment triples at other colleges, and I have one that has become available at Crown. And if I'm able to offer you that space, I will send what's called an alternate offer, so that you want to be checking your UCSC email as well as your housing portal for any offers. And those typically last 24 to 48 hours. So you want to make sure if you do end up on the wait list and you're interested in housing, that you are checking the portal and checking your email in case there's an offer for you. And then just to review, info sessions are happening right now. The Meet a Roomie events are this week into next week, depending on your community and the communities that you're interested in. The application period, as we've said previously, is the 19th to the 26th. The pre-assignment process is March 9th to the 31st, and room selection is April 7th. And then there's the QR code if you wanted to submit questions. Any last ones before we get into the question and answer portion. So this concludes the Crown and Merrill breakout room. You're welcome to stay and ask questions. I know we didn't get to some earlier, so I'm happy to answer those now. And then you're also welcome to join other communities' breakout rooms if you want to learn more about some different spaces. So I encourage you to do that now. And I'm just going to stop this recording.